Uh, Just to let for the edification of the people that are here and the people in the audience and on TV land, this is a joint committee meeting basically between the city council and the school committee members that are all here. This is to bring basically an update to the city council, to the citizens of Revere on the McKinley School. So our Ward 4 council, who is very inundated with a lot of meetings and on the subcommittee for the building committee, I'm going to let's say a few words, and it'll be the mayor, the superintendent, and then the presentation. Councilor Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I am Councilor Stephen Reardon, the Ward 4 Council, for those of you who don't know me. This meeting was called as a result of a vote of the School Building Committee a couple of weeks ago, because we are getting very, very near to coming up with some very positive and hopefully eventually finalized ideas. But two things we wanted to do is keep everybody informed of what's going on, because not everybody can make our meetings. And secondly, we wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to view what was going on and perhaps offer some input. If not tonight, we are kind of before a city council meeting, so this is more informational. But everybody should understand that the School Building Committee, through the Superintendent's Office, is very interested in how you feel about these designs and these plans. This is a community effort, and we want your input. If you're pleased, let us know. If you're displeased about something, please do let us know. Let me first start by introducing those members of the School Building Committee that are here tonight, and if I miss anybody, please shout out when I'm done. From the City Council is myself, Steve Reardon, and Anthony Zambuto. The principal of the President McKinley School, Ed Moshe. Anne Marie Costa, from the formerly of the Superintendent's Office. Donna Wood Pruitt, Dan McGuire, Michael Ferranti, Stacy Rizzo, and Carol Ty from the School Committee. We also have Benet Bertocci, who is the member of the Parent Teachers Association. George Anzoni, Carl Svensson from the Superintendent's Office, of course, Dr. Dakin, and Mayor Rizzo. And I'm going to turn this over to, if I've missed anybody, I apologize. If not, that's good, that's amazing. I'm going to turn it over to our Mayor, Dan Rizzo. He has been intimately involved in these plans as well, and he is going to start this off. Thank you very much.
Stephen, thank you very much, Councilor, Mr. President, members of the Council. Yeah, we wanted to spend a little time here with you this evening to talk about the ongoing plan to build a new McKinley School. As we all know, this is the last and final school that was part of an overall plan that we put in motion back in 2000. And obviously, a lot has happened since then. We've had to endure a very difficult economy, and which possibly set us back a few years. But overall, I think things have run extremely smoothly, and I'm very, very happy that pretty much the same team we had in place during the construction of the first school is still with us. And that being said, I just want to talk very, very briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over. But the way that I'd like to kind of proceed this evening is, I'm just going to give a very, very brief overview, as I say. Then I'm going to call up Superintendent Dakin, and he's going to give you an overview from his perspective as chair of the School Building Committee. Following Dr. Dakin, I'm going to call on Dave Billings, who's our OPM with Collaborative Partners, to talk about where we are, timelines, and other perspectives pertaining to the MSBA process. And then following him will be Scott Wooden from our design firm, Drummy Roseanne Anderson, regarding the site plan and other issues with respect to construction and design. As we all know, this went before the MSBA back about a little over a month ago for a vote, to which, subsequent to that, I sent you a letter explaining that the Hill Park site had been selected of all the options presented to them based on the economic feasibility as well as the educational opportunity that it would provide all the students attending the McKinley. As you know, that school has expanded greatly. We now have to educate 690 children. So obviously, it was a very painstaking process to find a site that could accommodate such a school and give the kids and the faculty, you know, a quality of life and an area where it would be comfortable for the learning experience for everybody involved. So it was determined, again, based on the economic and educational feasibility, that Hill Park would be the site. There will come a time, probably sometime in January, where we'll appear before you again to ask for actually three things. One will be to transfer the parkland under Article 97. That's going to be a requirement because federal funds were used on Hill Park some time ago, and we've already gone through that whole discussion about why that vote would be necessary. So that vote, you know, we would like to take, as well as in replacing the parkland. We're currently working with the Boston Archdiocese to take land behind St. Mary's Church in conjunction with the Little League fields. The Little League fields is kind of separate and apart from what we need to replace the softball field, but you know, as some of you may know that I've had conversations with, those fields are very, very important to the children of our community, and while the parish is under no threat of closing, I think it makes sense, while we're going back there and taking land to put a softball field, that the city maintain control over those Little League fields as well, so that if, God forbid, the parish were to ever close, we would know that the children that play there, close to 1,000 kids, would be protected, hopefully into perpetuity, once again with the city owning the property. And the third vote would be obviously funding the bond authorization to build the school. So those three votes we think would make the most sense having at all at one meeting. So that being said, we're going to be available here for questions. I want to thank the parents and faculty members that are here with us this evening. I know obviously everybody's very excited and concerned about the process, and we want to go as quickly as we possibly can so that we can get kids into this brand new state-of-the-art facility. So with that, at this point, I'd like to now, if it's okay with you, Mr. President, and members of the council, call on Dr. Dakin to give you his overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in the form of overview, this project started in 1999 when we first presented to some of you here, and actually Mayor Hess at the time, a proposal to rebuild what was seen as a number of schools that needed infrastructure work, at the same time projecting some increases in enrollment. That world has come true. We're a little bit behind our schedule 13 years later, but the then plan and development of the plan had McKinley as the last building in this series of a package of transformation of the facilities in the Revere Public Schools. A lot of debate went into why is McKinley last, why is Wayland first, and there were strategic reasons for all of that that made the flow of everything work better. And all along the way, from the first introduction of that plan to the City Council and the school committee, that has transformed now 3 mayors with Mayor Hess, Mayor Ambrosino, and Mayor Rizzo, and 2 superintendents from Carol Ty to myself. A lot of administrations and people have come and gone from various components, but the one thing that stood sharp and true all the time was the unwavering idea that a promise made in 1999 had to fulfill itself. Here we are at a milestone point, which is the beginning of the last project, to a building 108 years old that from anyone's eyes needs to be replaced. We're lucky to have worked with the same folks the state allowed us to, because they understand Revere, they understand how we think about our neighbors while we're building something. Councilor Reardon has been very forward in his commitment to representing his constituents as building committee meetings were here. As recently as 15 minutes ago, I was talking to Councilor Zambuto, who sat on all our committees, asking him his opinion on the kind of piles that would be used because of his experience. Their contact and their input has been invaluable all the time. And the openness of the committee itself to understand the needs of the community and help marshal in this project so that we can get it going as soon as possible. I want to thank the folks that have been working on the project for a while, the committee members, and I want to thank the parents and teachers and community itself around McKinley School for waiting so long. 13 years is a long wait, but it will come true. The state has approved the project, and that's the project that we want to unfold to you. Many of you have been privy to it, have been at building committee meetings, so that you understand that this is a chance for the public to get an idea on what the thinking is about the new school, and for all counselors to be appraised of the information. So, without wasting any more time, so that we can get that information to you and open up a forum of questions you may have for the consultants, Dave Billings, I think the mayor, would come up next. Dave represents, he's the owner's project management collaborative partners. They coordinate the activity for us, and Dave can give us an idea of the schedule of how things are going to roll out.
Thank you, Dr. Dakin. Good evening, everyone. David Billings, Collaborative Partners. As the mayor said, the Massachusetts School Building Authority has approved the feasibility study. The board did that at their October 3rd meeting. We are now in what's known as schematic design. We are now refining the design, looking at the problem, looking at the engineering, and more importantly, refining the costs. We are scheduled to present a schematic design to the MSBA staff for their approval, and then ultimately to the January 30th MSBA board for their approval of a final scope and budget. And after that, we'll be presenting it back to the city council for final bonding authorization to move the project forward. We are looking to complete that and to finish the design and get the project out to bid by next fall, in September of 13, for a completion date of fall of 15, so that we can get the kids into this new school really as fast as possible. This is it's the timeline in terms of times of what we did at the Rumney Marsh and also what we did at the Paul Revere School. We're looking at about 1.5 years, 2 years of construction after we've finished the design process. We are moving very quickly forward. We are doing a lot of engineering, a lot of design right now, and a lot of thinking with the committee and the school department. And now I'd like to bring up Scott Wooden of DRA to sort of update you on where we are in the design.
Good evening. I'm going to give a quick update as to where we've been over the last couple of months as we've continued to develop the design for the new elementary school. Following our approval by MSBA to the preferred option, which was the E scheme at the end of our preliminary schematic design program, we've completed quite a bit of there's been a lot of dialogue in regards to the design of the building, both the site and the building itself. And a lot of the time that has been spent since then has kind of been a back and forth between trying to concentrate on different building issues and to concentrate on different site issues and have the two different design initiatives kind of marry into one another. At the end of the preferred schematic design, which is when we identified between the A through the E schemes, which was going to be the preferred option. We resolved that the E scheme was the preferred option on the Hill Park site. And at that time, we had a certain building design that had several issues that were significant enough that we had to look at the design of the building sort of comprehensively and do a lot of sort of redesign to make it work. Some of the most significant issues were that the impact of the footprint with all of the assembly spaces on the ground floor was significantly decreasing the amount of available land that was left over for parking and for vehicular access on the site. This, when we talk about the assembly spaces, we're talking about the cafeteria, which is about 4,500 square feet, the gymnasium, which is about 6,000 square feet, as well as the library, which was about 3,000 square feet. But actually, that was on an upper floor. But the gymnasium and the cafeteria were taking up a significant amount of real estate on the first floor, and we started looking at the overall design of the building and how it might relate to, if I move over to those boards, am I gonna, what about, is there a traveling microphone, or do I just start speaking loudly? I use Tony's?
You use Council
I use
Simple.
Tony's.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to be a little bit brief in regards to the building plan, because there's a lot of people in this room and the plans are rather small, and but I wanted to talk a little bit about how the building is overall organized, and basically what it is, and I'm going to start with the site plan, and then I'm going to get back to the floor plans for a minute. The site plan, as you can see, for all of those who haven't been involved in the entire process, we've allocated the entire area for the Della Russo Stadium to be left as it is, with some additional real estate given over to that, because the long-term plan is that this is going to be developed, maybe not long-term either, we're not sure exactly when this is going to be occurring. It could be occurring as soon as 2013, 2014. But this current stadium goes to about here. We've extended the area proposed for the stadium down to here, so that this will be an official regulation football field, but also an official and regulation size track complex. So we can actually start having track meets again in Revere. The plan was that this area will be the bleachers. This area back here, some of the amenities that are currently in this area, such as the tennis court and the basketball court, those get relocated to this small area back at the northwest corner of the site. So from the school itself, there's recreational resources both adjacent to the school right here with a tot lot, but also a nice landscape pathway back here to these courts, which could serve as hard surface play area. Okay, there is a real concern. It is a small site. It was the one that offered the most amenities on site and adjacent to it in terms of recreational resources. But it is a small site. We've got a lot of parking on the site. We've got a lot of vehicles that are coming and going that we need to handle, and we want to try to manage that and do it as safely and efficiently as possible. So we're going to get back to this plan in just a minute, but I just wanted to run through very quickly the overall organization of the building. One of the strategies that we employed since the last time when we came with the E-scheme, and this was very critical in terms of opening up more of the site for parking and circulation, was that we placed the gymnasium on the second floor. So the gymnasium now stacks over the cafeteria. We resolved that by lots of vertical circulation that comes right up to that area. There's dedicated toilets on the second floor. But as the plan currently exists now, the mechanical area, shipping and receiving back in this area, the cafeteria here with the gymnasium stacked over it, the kitchen is here, and the kitchen in the service area, I'll show that on the site plan, but it has easy access back here to both the compactor and to the loading area. And then we have the administration area is right here centralized, so that we have a similar strategy as what we employed at the Rumney Marsh Academy, where we have a drop-off on two different sides of the building, and they come into a common lobby. So in this strategy, we have parents dropping off along here on the interior part of the site, coming in this entrance, but also an active edge here along Park Avenue where people could also drop off, and kids, as well as walkers from the neighborhood, can come in this entrance. They come into a common lobby. Administration's right there. Excellent for surveillance. Administration is also centralized with straight views down both the corridors, also excellent for security and surveillance. On the first floor, we organize our kindergarten classrooms and our pre-kindergarten classrooms. It's good for a couple, well, it's good for a number of different reasons, I guess, but easy access to the cafeteria, student dining, easy access from the parent drop-off circle on the interior part of the site, and also quick and convenient access out these doors to the tot lot, to the play area for the small children. So as we go up the building, as I mentioned, where the gymnasium is organized on the second floor over the cafeteria. There's a large stair out here which is going to become a prominent architectural element right on Park Avenue. Park Street rather. A couple of classrooms back in this area, the Library Media Center right here facing over the entrance to the school, and then a typical, efficient, and economical classroom wing in terms of the way that it's organized, all of the toilet cores stacked, and on the third floor, just more classrooms, toilets in the center. There's computer labs, special education spaces, resource rooms, et cetera, that are interspersed among the other classrooms in the building. The gymnasium goes up to, is a double height volume, so that basically goes up to the third floor level, but it's just the upper part of the gymnasium, so it's not accessible from the third floor, only from the second floor. So that's a kind of a quick overview of the building. It's an efficient plan in terms of circulation, the way that the structural grid stacks, the way that the plumbing stacks. So very economical in regards to those types of planning strategies. We do know that it's going to be a pile or a deep foundation system based on what the soils in this area are. So similar to Rumney Marsh, but not quite as bad as that. It's not quite as deep in terms of how deep the piles have to go to support the anticipated loads that we have for the building. So now if we could just focus for a minute on the site plan, which, as I mentioned, has been the root of a lot of the discussions that we've had, because when we originally planned the building with the original E-scheme, there was a significant concern with the amount of the parking and how vehicular traffic was going to work on the site. I don't have a copy of the plan here, but just to, I'm going to block the drawing for a minute here. Just to remind everyone, it was more of a courtyard type scheme that was sort of centered on the site, and we hadn't established or anticipated a connection at that time to Fernwood. Again, when we developed the E-scheme, we were just kind of testing that out versus Del Russo Stadium versus the McKinley School site. So a lot of this stuff it just sort of happens later in the process. So since we've gotten the approval of MSBA in October, we've gone back, we've done a complete ground survey of the site, we've had a complete traffic study done by a traffic engineering firm, and we've also had a lot of discussions with the school administration as well as the superintendent's office, as well as the city planner and the fire department in regards to how this site really works, how the tributary roads work, and how we're going to get a realistic and efficient and safe vehicular traffic pattern. So, as I mentioned before, by stacking some of the assembly spaces, we were able to make the footprint of the building a little bit more compact. That opens up a little bit more area on the site for some of our parking and circulation. As it stands right now, we've got over 100 spaces in this plan. There has been one significant change to the plan in regards to the property extent since the E-scheme, and what we've started looking at, what we feel is very important to the capacity and circulation on the site, is a connection into Fernwood. And this opening up Fernwood Place as being a conduit to the site. The site itself will accommodate about 75 parking spaces, which is less than we even need for the school building itself. So we started proposing and discussing with the superintendent, with the mayor, the possibility of acquiring some additional properties along Fernwood Place, which we feel more and more is critical in terms of the success of the plan. Can the plan work without that? It probably can. The two large trade-offs are going to be, we're going to have inadequate parking even for the school. We're going to be over what the school requires without even adding any additional parking for the stadium and any events at the school. And also, it becomes very difficult to feed the site in terms of circulation. Even if we establish this connection at Fernwood without the acquisition of the properties, it becomes very bottlenecked here, and we're trying to dissuade a lot of egress from the site coming out at Park Street, because as everyone knows, this intersection backs up quite a bit at Park in the morning, at all points of the day actually, And having people come out here, we would certainly have to make this a right turn only. So we want to try to get as many people coming back onto Fernwood as we can so that we can mitigate the impact onto Park. This plan, as it's developed right now, provides a number of options, which we've worked closely with the traffic engineer to help to understand how we can have both plan strategies and also initiate some of the passive strategies that parents are going to adopt on their own after the school is constructed and the site is in use. But this plan gives us the options of both bringing cars into the MBTA right away here. It's not a right of way. It's a way. It's a path that we're using for ingress and egress from our site. They can come in this way. They can circulate through and drop off. They can come in from Fernwood. They can drop off along this edge and loop right around and go back out Fernwood. They can come in this way and engage with the drop-off for the younger kids, the kindergartners, pre-kindergartners, first graders, and they can come back this way and either go out Park, or they can loop around and come back out and out Fernwood. So there's a lot of strategies. There's a lot of options. We definitely think that by closing this entrance point or exit point from the site is going to create a very significant traffic problem at Park. This is really critical to make this connection. And without opening this up and the possible acquisition of these properties, this has a very difficult time becoming a two-way street. It's very narrow right now. I think it's about 16 feet curb to curb. It doesn't fulfill the requirements from a two-way. So if people were coming in here without any alteration to this street, everyone would have to engage the site here and discharge at Park Ave, which I think we could probably all agree is deleterious. The service area, we have a tot lot back here with several play structures planned, the compactor, a loading area, space for a transformer, space for a generator. We'll want to screen both of these with both vegetation and possibly some fences to privatize them. We still have a major access point through back here for parking to access this plaza and ultimately get access to the stadium for weekend events. What else? I think that covers the bulk of it. Again, with this plan, we have over 100 spaces. Without the acquisition of these properties, we'd have somewhere in the 75 to 80 range. We're still looking at exactly how we're going to iron out this corner right here. There's our property line comes back here. The fire department has some parking that they utilize back here that we're trying to be responsive to. Heard a voice. Well, we haven't looked at those in regards to the neighborhood itself, but within the site, we certainly have crosswalks at all of these cross points. We still need to study a little bit more, and the traffic report is just being finalized right now in regards to the recommendations for traffic patterns off-site. So those would be established. We would have a plan that would implement any sort of crossing lights, crosswalks, things like that, which we would then start to identify on our subsequent plans. But it's just about a week premature to ask that question. We're just getting the report back in the next couple of days formalized. If I could just, before we move on to questions, if I could just run through, we have a model of the building that we've been working with, and it's basically just a massing study to show what the impact of this building is going to be relative to the other structures in the area. We're starting to model it in terms of getting some design ideas for what different features on different elevations are most important for us. And there it is. So this is looking toward our structure with the soccer field, the football field in the background. Those vertical elements are the light poles for the proposed football field. The buildings in the foreground, you can see the fire department, the fire station, as well as the apartment building that's on the corner of Broadway and Park. And the view along Park. The building is going to be very prominent. It's going to be relatively strong to the curb, but the adjacent structures, is the residential on the opposite side as well as the apartment building on the corner, are all of similar scale, so it shouldn't be disproportionate to its context. We're looking at having a lot of transparency in the building, a lot of transparency at the stairwells as well as the gymnasium. We see the gymnasium and the cafeteria as being open with views out toward the stadium, so although an urban site, it does place it in a context that's rather softened by the grass in the stadium. This is the interior part of the site. You can see the library will be very prominent as you walk into the main entrance. You'll see the glazing of the library, and that'll be animated by both the furnishings as well as children within the space. And these large elevations on the side will all have windows in them. Those are the classroom wings, so obviously those will have punched openings or curtain wall in them. As you walk into the main lobby, there's a lot of glass into the administration area, lots of transparency through the cafeteria right out into the stadium. So it's going to have a real strong connection. We see it as having a very strong connection to its surrounding area by these very open and airy spaces. Looking out toward Park Avenue, up this monumental stair. Up on the second floor, looking back toward that. Just a few more slides here. This is the entrance as you would see it from Park Avenue, with the stairs coming down from the gymnasium, as well as the monumental stair in the lobby. This is the administration area with a ramp up, a small ramp up to the level that the kindergarten classrooms are on. It's ramped for several reasons, not least of which is to respond to the natural grades on the site, so we can mitigate how much cutting and filling and earthwork we need to do. This is a view of the gymnasium. Again, like the student dining area, lots of transparency between the corridor space and the stadium. View from the stadium. So that is about where we stand right now. I think that's sort of covers all the points that we want to make, if we want to entertain some questions.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. President, just real quick before we go in, I would imagine some councilors may have some questions, but I just wanted to let you know that in addition to the gentleman who just spoke, we also have with us Fire Chief Gene Doherty, who is here, our Director of Finance, George Anzoni is here, and our City Planner, Frank Stringy, is also here, if you have any, specific questions for them. I also want to recognize Tommy Hill, who was here, for whom without him and his family, we might not be in this position today. So, Tommy, I want to thank you and your family for your cooperation in helping us get this far. So.
Mayor, thank you. Since you named everybody by name, the school committee I mentioned was here. Of course, they're very involved in this. I'll mention them by name. Dan McGuire, Mike Ferranti, Stacy Rizzo, Carol Ty, Donna Wood Pruitt, and I'm not sure if I see Freddie Sinella. So the whole school committee is here. I'm sorry to mention my name before. I just assumed everybody would know you were here, but they've been a little more involved than every counselor here. They're all on the building committee. So with that being said, I will, and just to let the councilors know, there's not going to be a vote on this tonight. My thing, the quicker there is a vote, I think the better for everybody in Revere. That's just my opinion. So hopefully a lot of this stuff can come in front of us over the next couple of months, so we can take a vote on the park issue, because there's probably different steps you have to take, and this council vote will matter if there's not 8 votes on a couple issues. So I would like to get that over with. But that being said, I'll open up the councilors, and I'll start with the right side and then come down. Councilor Arrigo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's no secret that I have a lot of questions about this project, and we've gone through a great presentation, and we haven't talked about a cost. And I know in August we were given some numbers that it was going to be about $34 million. From what I've heard now, we're at 41.7 as a total project cost, and that is just including the school. That doesn't include any other property that's going to be taken that we need to pay for. That doesn't include paying for the renovation of Hill Park and the renovation of the McKinley School. With that said, I hope that we can get some answers about how exactly we're going to pay for it, how much the actual cost is going to be, and you know, I think we've been lacking a little bit of information as far as costs, because some of the information I've heard about our budget, we can't afford $7,000 repairs, and it just makes me question whether or not we can actually afford the school. I know we have to potentially build a new high school, so we're looking at some very big issues coming down the pike. And with all that said, we have an election tomorrow, and depending on that election, we may be, as a state, looking at $700 million less in federal money. So any reliance on state money to renovate Harry Delarusso Stadium, might be in doubt. So I think there are just a lot of questions about the financing of the project, and I hope that, I know we have our Director of Finance, the mayor's here, maybe we can talk a little bit about how exactly this is going to get funded. Thank you.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we have a meeting at 6 o'clock. There are a lot of questions you probably asked that they don't have the answers to. I'm sure they don't know how much the property's going to cost, and I agree with you. I mean, the thing here is the school committee's no question, and the superintendent and everybody, their first objective is the school. There's no question about that, and I commend them for that. That's what they're there for. That's what they're elected for. Us as a city council government body, we have a task of a balancing act. And you're 100% right, Council. The money goes on the taxpayers' back, and we have that burden. Can we afford it? But the questions, if the mayor has the answers, that's all well and good. If you don't have it, in other words, could we get these at some, like I said, at least to the next, before we have to, several weeks before we take a vote, just so we could talk these things over.
Mr. President, absolutely. I mean, and the council should know this, it kind of is a moving target right now. That's why they call it a feasibility study, and we're doing the very best we can to keep the city council updated with the best information that we have. But, I'd be lying to you if I stood here and said that we already know every single cost that's going to be included in this project. Right now we don't. We're trying to see, we just found that, we're talking about, what kind of, structure, or how deep do we need to go into the ground to sustain, this school. I mean, there's cost involved with everything, and if I had all the answers a month or two ago, or even tonight, I would give them to you. That's why as I prefaced in my remarks, I'll be coming before you with a bond authorization request at some point in time when we have those figures. You know, I understand where you're coming from when you said the $7,000 repair, and it's true. I mean, you know, when you get to the end of the year and you have an operating budget, you know, there's not much you can do, but this is a capital project. And as far as a capital project goes, you know, obviously we're going to have to go out to bond. We're very fortunate that we're at an 80% reimbursement level. So the taxpayer will only be on the hook for 20% of the cost. And listen, you know, if we could have it built at a 90% level or 100% level, I'd love it, you know, and I'm sure the city council would too. You know, but we can only work with what we have, and this is part of the overall building plan that was set forth back in, as Dr. Dakin said, 1999. We're just trying to finish up on our promise to the children of this community. So as soon as we know and we have accurate numbers, obviously we're going to provide you with that. I don't know if, Dave, you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the schedule a bit. We are finalizing the design, we're finalizing the engineering, we're getting all the costs together. We expect by the end of this month to have all the project budget together, because we need to put a package together to the MSBA that needs to have all of the costs, because what's going to be presented to them is what is going to be the basis for the grant. We are in the MSBA system. They have promised 80% reimbursement to the city. The money is there in their program for that.
Can I ask you one question? When you do give the city council a financial report on this, can you give us what's 80%, what's 100%? If we take homes, it's 100%. They're not going to pay 80%. I know how it works. So there's a 100% aspect to this that the taxpayers pick up, and there's an 80%, 80-20, which it'd be great if the whole thing was 80-20, but when you give it to us, can you give it to us in a breakdown?
We're going to be working very closely with the MSBA. As you know, they have their regulations, they have caps on certain things, so that there's money for all the cities and towns in the project. That's something that we're going to be working very closely with them throughout the month of December in order to make sure that we get the highest reimbursement possible. So that's the timeline.
Thank you. Councilor Rico, one more question, and
Yeah,
Councilor Corrigan.
Mr. President, I just asked that when the cost estimate is done, that it includes not only, you know, the cost of the new school, but the cost of taking property, obviously.
Yep.
The cost of the stadium upgrade that we've talked about, that's been kind of mentioned. The cost of the McKinley renovation, which has also been talked about, and the cost of Hill Park being relocated. I think all those pieces are part of this bigger puzzle.
Yeah,
and I think we need to look at this issue in that lens of it's not just the school, which is 80% reimbursable, but there are costs that go over and above that the taxpayer is going to have to pay for, and it's good to see those numbers.
Of the overall master plan. We're kind of concerned with what the school is. Our estimates are for the school project, what needs to happen for the school. St. Mary's ball fields are required to make the school project work. The acquisition of the properties on Fernwood to make the circulation work are part of this project cost. The stadium is going to be funded under another program altogether. Same thing for what's going to happen at the McKinley School in 2015 when it becomes a municipal building. Those are sort of costs that are sort of outside of the scope of really what we're concentrating, because we need to get before the state and get on their timeline and get into their cycle so we have the funding together so we can get that school open in fall of 15.
I just want to remind everybody that we do have to still pay for those projects if you know, they happen. So,
Council, I think we all understand, we don't know what exactly we have to pay for yet, so when they come up with tighter numbers and, you know, more secure numbers, I think that's when more questions will be asked. Councilor Corrigan.
Thank you. I'll be very, very brief. Besides the cost factor, I'm interested in student capacity. The future of the building, will we be able to accommodate any additional overflow of students? and also classroom size that we can continue quality education?
The MSBA restricts, we have an agreement, 690 kids. That's the size building that we are designing for. The site's very tight. We will certainly look at options to expanding it if required. The classroom size is going to be as it was in the Paul Revere and all of the new schools. We are, this is going to be a 21st century learning institution. We're going to have the best classrooms meeting all of the requirements.
And my last question is water and sewer upgrades, reconstruction of drainage for the area. Can you explain a little bit about that, about how it's going to affect the neighborhood?
There's some existing drainage on the site that'll need to be handled. It may or may not need to be relocated slightly based on other drainage structures that we're putting in. The site drainage within the site itself, there'll be a new stormwater management system on the site. We'll provide. We're going to need to comply with DEP regulations. We're going to have to provide on-site storage similar to what we had at the West Revere School as well as at the Paul Revere School. So there'll be some underground structures that are going to provide significant storage capacity. We're also, and we would also recommend that the city, when they pursue the development of the stadium complex, there's a lot that you can do with additional stone underneath the stadium that can also provide a significant amount of increased storage. So there's going to be, certainly there's going to be improvements. Everything on the site will be, there will be additional capacity to the both the water service and the sewer, both storm and sanitary. But we'll make sure that everything is up to capacity for that. We believe that right now there won't be any issues with the addition to the infrastructure in that area, because we're going to be decreasing it also by reducing the amount of the population that are utilizing the McKinley School. So there will definitely be improvements to the area, and there will be, in terms of stormwater, we're doing everything we need to do on site to mitigate the impact of that on the city's infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Krizio. Councilor Janino?
Thank you. I just had one quick question regarding that MBTA right-of-way next to Hill Park now. I know the first time we looked at this plan, we looked at that piece of land right there. So has there been something that's kind of going to make sure that MBTA buses and fire apparatus can still get through that passage when school's coming in and getting out, or?
Somebody want to back me up on this one?
Thank you.
We have, I can offer that we have had discussions with Chief Doherty as well as with Frank Stringy's office, and they feel comfortable that, we're going to widen it in regards to where we establish our curb up against the building sidewalk. So we have some flexibility. This is the existing parking for the apartment building there, but we do have some flexibility in terms of widening it in that direction. So we'll be able to get capacity in there for a double lane. And we believe that, and Chief Doherty can speak to the fire department apparatus, but we believe that the amount of traffic that we'll have there and the amount of buses that go in there for the MBTA is something that will be subtle and will be manageable. Do you want to talk about the fire access?
As Scott alluded to earlier, it's really not a right-of-way. It's city property that comes in off Park Ave that goes to a plot of land that the MBTA owns. So MBTA. The city allows the buses to make that cut through to facilitate a better access versus going to Park Ave to Broadway and making those turns. And they stage buses there early in the morning. So that will still be there. It's kind of but part of this whole concern with the traffic and Fernwood Place and getting Fernwood Place a two-way street is that such a kind of a no-man's zone there. The buses, it's wide open. The fire apparatus is in there all the time. The buses come in and park 2 and 3 abreast sometimes. So it's not conducive right now to the safety of the children or anybody coming in and out, and the additional impact that traffic might have if they don't have that ability to utilize Fernwood Place. So that was part of our discussions, that had to be, primary part of the project at Fernwood Place would be a two-way street, so that, as you know, you're going off to the firehouse and you try to take a right or left, it's very difficult. It's not, there's no delineation on the roadway or anything like that. It's just a big parking lot. But there should be no problem with that if we go through with this process. And the architects have also spoke about and Dr. Dakin has shown a large concern that there'll be some kind of walkways or promenade that the children and parents can access from Broadway to the back end of the school.
Thank you, Councilor Gino. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. My concern is with sensitivity towards the people's homes that are being taken for the land taking. Has anybody reached out, either from the city or from you folks, as to the individual parcels that we're talking about, so that these people aren't watching on TV tonight and they're not now getting it through the media that their homes might be taken? Has anybody reached out to them?
Yeah, we've spoken to 2 of the 3 property owners. We have not spoken with one of them. A lot of this, in terms of actually coming down to, I think it's been alluded to, you know, can the project go forward without it? Yes, it can. But is it going to be the best going forward for the safety of the children, for the, you know, for the traffic flow in that area? No. But it's taken us some time to get to the point. I mean, quite honestly, if I didn't, I mean, if I had my druthers, I would just assume not take the property, because that's money the city can save. But, you know, as this whole process unfolds and the traffic study is conducted, and we're starting to kind of realize what the impacts will be, it's becoming more and more clear. It just really, within the last week or so, has become totally clear to us that it pretty much has now become a real, more of a requirement than a nice thing to do. So, you know, but that being said, 2 of the 3 property owners have been spoken to, and quite honestly, actually 3 of the 4, because the building, the home right on Fernwood is actually a 2-family. They're 2 condos, and both unit owners have been spoken to, as well as the property all the way back adjacent to Hill Park, and they're all more than receptive. So
yeah, that's my concern, because I believe those are people I represent. That's a portion of Ward 3, and I would be very concerned and upset somewhat because I was never led to believe that this land taking was going to take place, would be part of the ballgame. And so now that I know about it, I would have liked the opportunity to at least be part and parcel and privileged to know that information, so that I can intelligently speak with these individuals and can conduct a conversation. I don't like going up there and knocking on their door and soliciting their support for my reelection, and they say, hey, by the way, they're going to take my house, and I don't know anything about it.
Well, right, Councilor, believe me, I mean, we're trying to get this information to you as soon as we get it. I mean, this is, you know, as I say, it's always been a goal of mine not to take the property. I didn't want to have to take it. But as all of these studies come to light, as the architects, you know, get more into their plan, I mean, we just went through the schematic design phase where the SBA had to vote just a month ago. So for them to actually get their wheels going on this particular site and try to determine what's necessary and what isn't, you know, we're getting this information. We're trying to get it to you as quickly as we possibly can.
I appreciate that, Matt. And in my read on it, in the very brief presentation you made, and I was at the meeting you had before, the building meeting, there's a difference between 75 and 100. So it's 25 spaces that is really the reason why we're going after these properties, plus an additional space that would allow for a better traffic flow. Is that correct?
Right. And you know, I might say, at least from my own personal perspective, it's more for, I mean, like the spaces would be great. Traffic flow you know, is definitely much more of a priority, you know, from my perspective. You know, not having all that traffic pour onto Park Ave, in addition with fighting with the, you know, if there's an occasional fire engine pulling in or a bus. So it would just make for a much smoother transition at pickup and drop-off times.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just, the brevity of it is that I share some of the concerns of Councilor Arrigo, based on the fact that finances is a crucial part of the business we're in. It's hard for us to to sell ourselves to people and become salesmen seeking their vote. And then the same verse said, we want a new school for you. And then the next print is, how are we going to pay for this? So I just want to make certain that we're in a financial position, as Councilor Rigo stated earlier. It went up several $1 million in the last conversation we had. Now, we know, is this going to top off at what level? And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about how much money is going to be placed on the taxpayer based on 20% of several $1 million. A lot of money. That's a fifth of the project. And the taxpayer is going to bear the brunt of that. So I think we need to know exactly what is it going to cost for the school, what's it going to cost for additional acquisitions and how necessary are they, and all the other betterments around there that are thrown into this school. Can we get away with just doing the school for X number of dollars? I think we've got to layer this out into financial packages based on the fact that we represent a ton of people out there that are living on a very fixed budget. And when we talk of any additional funding that's going to be required for them to pay, especially many seniors, their children have already gone through the system, to the assistance of which was deplorable. Their children, their grandchildren already went there. Now we have a lot of senior citizens living. They're saying, gee, how fair is that to me? I got to pay the brunt of. We know that's the future of Revere. We know that that's the future that we live with. But the seniors got to pay for this, and I'm concerned about that. And because they asked that question of me, so I want to be able to intelligently say to them, well, we came up with the most feasible, cost-effective package we could possibly give. Plus, we know we have to educate these kids in a proper environment. So we're stuck with a couple of hats here, and we have to work within that process. And I think we have to be kind of frugal as to how we attempt, what's our approach to this, because sensitivity out there is people are very, very upset with the amount of bills that we're placing upon them. And we know, by the appearance here this evening, it's required and necessary for these kids to have a place to to be able to be educated in a proper position. But we got to worry about the money, and I'm concerned about that. And I'm going to be watching that as close as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, the only thing, let me just respond to that just very, very briefly, because your point is very well taken. And like you, I'm very sensitive to increasing property taxes and so on. The one thing that I don't want to see the city council do, though, and I wouldn't have any reason to suspect you would, but I wouldn't want to see you be, short-sighted to the extent that we have to live with this project, presumably for the next 30, 40, 50 years that this school is going to be there. I wouldn't want to see the city council vote down a part of the project that, relatively speaking, as part of the overall cost, is going to be, I hate to use the word minimal, but relatively minimal to the overall cost of the project, and then have to have neighbors and residents and parents living with a traffic mess for that amount of time. I mean, so I just want you to be.
The only thing that sticks out clearly in my head is because of costs and the feasibility of how much it costs for the Port Revere School, we had to cut out 50 school children. We had to downsize. Why? One major reason: finances, money. I was very upset when that vote was taken, based on the fact that we were told this is all we could afford. So that's all I'm saying that we should do now in this approach, is to watch the amount of money we're going to spend, because I, for the life of me, believe that Port Revere School should have been much larger to accommodate the children that we knew were going to go there.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
We couldn't afford it, and that's a fact, and that's why I'm very mindful. The same thing's going to happen at McKinley, but I want to make certain they get a good package, but something we can afford.
Right.
That's,
Thank you, Councilor Gross. I'm going to move on to Councilor Hess.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've come a long way since 1999 that we finally have something in front of us for the children of the McKinley School. As you all know, my daughter taught there the first grade for 9 years. I'm fully aware of that school, the condition of it, the asbestos, etc. But I think Councilor Arrigo brought up points that him and I have discussed, the cost of it. First it was $40 million, or 20% will be paying $8 million, will be the city's liability. And I think what we really have to know is the total, complete cost. I don't want to find out this in January when the mayor comes up before the city council with a bond authorization. I want it as soon as you individuals find out what the cost would be, to the best of your ability. I think we have to analyze that through our Ways and Means Committee. Every councilor here agrees we need a new McKinley School. There's no question about that. But the cost becomes a major factor. So before we get the third item in the mayor's hit list was basically bond authorization. I want to make sure we collectively receive all of the financial data. Also, with the major water trunk going through there, are you building the school around that trunk, or are you going to build it over that trunk?
Well, there's a likelihood that we may need to relocate that. And when you say major, we don't really see it as being major. It's a 20-inch line that goes through there. So the fact that we're going to be...
It floods the whole, every time you get flooding or heavy rain from the hills, it all
Right.
comes down to Park Ave.
Well, if we were to relocate that, we would put in the new line. We would put in a new line before we made the connection, before we tapped into the existing line. Now, I don't know if there's problems with the line downstream or upstream from the site.
Well, I think
but-
that's where you people have to really get involved with our city engineers
Absolutely.
to find out before we make a major presentation, all of a sudden we may have a major cost outlay as far as relocating, et cetera. I think we have to look at the whole area in general, not just Hill Park.
Right.
Because that whole area floods. We
Yeah, I
all know
understand.
that.
Yep.
Okay, and that's what I want to make sure you people really analyze. But I'm looking forward to receiving some financial data. We're all for the school. We have to look at the cost of what to the taxpayers.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hess. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, everybody knows, as Councilor Hess said, we know we need a McKinley School. And as far as I'm concerned, it should have been done 8 years ago. The second school in line, not the last school. But the questions I say is, we have to remember, as my three colleagues before me talked about money. Big, big issue. The Paul Revere got shortchanged, as Councilor Granasso said, by the MSBA. They wanted us to make it smaller so it would cost them less money. Now they want us to make it bigger. They can't make up their minds. I have questions about school bus access, whether they can, because we have pretty big school buses, standard size, 45, 50 kids. Are they going to have sufficient access onto the site? What about maintenance and warranties? We've had problems with some of our schools already over the last 20 years with leakage, rusting, panels falling off. I want a guarantee. If we can get a longer warranty and guarantees on some of those panels that may be put up, let's get them. Have we thought about using solar services? It's a big thing now, solar panels. The cost of electricity is enormous, and everybody knows that. Everybody in here has their homes thinking about it. Are we thinking about utilizing some of that, even if it's for our hot water? Anything. Are we talking about recycling rainwater? It's one of the new things now. If we want to water our grass, let's use the rainwater instead of our street water, which is enormous on the cost, that 20-inch line. The concerns are to the taxpayers. The costs is the bottom line. And our colleagues before me, and I'll get into the field, into the stadium. I know it's not a direct construction, but it is a piece of the pie. We have a memorial in there. Is that going to be protected for John McCarthy? We're talking about, are we talking about a field house so they can go in and change, so the officials have a private place? We have a box. This is something that we have at the stadium now. Is that going to be replaced? The refreshment stand, the press box, named after someone. All these costs mean something to everybody here in this room. Replacement costs, the cost of St. Mary's property, the cost of fixing over the old school. Who is going to pay for it? These folks right here. So this is what I'm looking at, just like my other councilors before me. Big, big issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I know word was put out there that Councilor Patch is against the McKinley School, but I want you to know that I am 100% for the building of the McKinley School. But I do have a problem with the site. In December of 2010, the superintendent came before the council, and if not all the councilors, but the majority of the councilors, told him that Hill Park was not to be considered. Then we don't hear anything for a year and a half or so, and then all of a sudden whispers come out to Hill Park. Now, I made it to the unfortunately, I couldn't make it to all the building meetings because of an operation, but I made it to the last one. And we all got, I was the only one at that meeting, again, that spoke out against taking Hill Park to build a school. A lot of people say it's sentimental reasons, maybe, because I grew up on Victoria Street, and my mother's house was on Alston Street, so I spent a lot of time in that area. I played in that park for many years, but I'm done. I'm not, you know, my kids, I'm worried more about your children. You know, a great school is nice, you know. I was lucky enough, I went to Immaculate for 12 years, but I would have went to McKinley School. My niece, my sister still lives on Victoria Street, and like I say, my other grandmother's gone now, but we grew up on Alston Street. The thing is, you go to school, you're losing a place for your kids to play in. And one of the big issues for the sale to put it at Hill Park was that there would be no land acquisitions. It states there right there, no acquisitions. Also, I was actually for building it on the original site. If we're taking more land parcels, but I was kind of shot down on that one because we didn't have, supposedly we didn't have the money. So this is new to me. This is the first time I heard that they're going to take Fernwood Place, because I had a big argument for what 700 students at the Hill Park site would do for traffic control. Just coming here today, I mean, it was gridlock. What do you expect is going to happen with 700 students? Because nobody walks anymore. Trying to get. Well, I hope you do. But even if you don't, there's going to be a big gridlock. There's going to be a big gridlock. No buses. Well, I'll tell you right now, I just found out that that in order for this project to go through, there's going to be a redistricting of the Lincoln and Whalen School. That's the first I heard of that one. But to get back to Hill Park. It is, we have to worry about, I go along with the Council of Ward 2. It probably should have been done second. It was the worst building, that and the Paul Revere School were the worst building. They should have been done. And I'm gonna keep an open mind on this. But again, you know, you're the people that are gonna be losing the park. I have no use for that park anymore. I wish I could. My children get houses, they bought houses in Revere, but they get the park at the Whalen School. My grandchildren are all set. You're the ones that are gonna have to suffer losing the park. And if you can live with that, fine with me. But again, there's a lot of new questions that came before us tonight that need to be addressed. And hopefully we can straighten this out for you and get the new school built. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clear up one thing that the mayor said, that, and he makes a point, that perhaps the city council shouldn't be short-sighted. We were not the ones that were short-sighted 10 or 12 years ago. We pledged ourselves, some of them aren't here now, but some of you are, that we would support the building of 5 new schools in the city of Revere. And I believe at that time, Dr. Dakin said that these schools were being built with an extra 5% capacity. Am I wrong or right, Dr. Dakin?
Well, they were built to the specifications after studies that the MSBA requires.
Yeah.
MSBA automatically requires student population surveys. They did that information, and as a result, those first buildings were built to the capacity that they were told. This building there's 500 kids at the McKinley now. They know we need space. They know the growth pattern in the district, over 600 new students in the last 3 years. And they said, looking at all of their studies about population, you need a 690 student building here now, and you should think about the future because your community is exploding. So yes, and I'll venture to say that every school we opened up wasn't even big enough. The day they opened up, every building was over capacity. I'll take the risk of saying right now that when we open up the McKinley, there'll be the need to put more than 690 kids in there.
Because I remember clearly we had this discussion.
Well, Council, can we just stick to the issue?
I am.
I'm saying I'm not going to, I understand, I'm going to go longer. We're already 20 minutes longer. I'll go forever if you want. This is a very serious issue.
No.
All I want to do is stick to the issue.
I'm
I mean, the
talking,
school's not built. We're here for the...
exactly. I'm talking
okay?
about money too.
Well, I'm not talking about things that already happened.
Okay. We downsized the Paul Revere School, as Councilor Ganasso alluded to. Why, I don't know. Everybody said it was money. All of a sudden, we have the money today to do all of these different things. Romney Marsh could have been enlarged somewhat. There was room to put another level on that, I think. Okay, but more importantly right now, we're talking about taking homes on Fernwood Place for parking. We're talking about rebuilding the old McKinley School at some point. I heard some of my colleagues up here a few years ago say we didn't even have money to redo the police station for office space parking over there. So these are the questions that I would like answered. I would like to know exactly what it's going to cost us for A, B, C, D, and E, every aspect of that McKinley School. I'd like to know from the Director of Finance and the Mayor. I believe now our bonded debt, including interest, is $100 million. How much of that is going to be depleted by the time we have to go out and bond these new schools, this new school? I'd like to know from the superintendent down the road, what we're looking at as far as expansion of the school department. Because when I vote up here on an issue that affects the taxpayers of this city, I want to know what I'm voting for, and I want to know what it's going to cost the taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Powers. Council Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, everybody, for coming from Ward 4 in particular. Do need to address one issue with Councilor Granasso. Firm Place is still in Ward 4. As is the Lighthouse, which I should have mentioned at our last meeting, the Lighthouse Nursing Home. But beyond that, I want to address a couple of things. First of all, I am really happy to hear that everybody realizes that we need to build a new McKinley Hill, hopefully, school. And I want to remind everybody that the project manager with the input of the school building committee has been reporting things regularly to us and to anybody else who wanted to listen. I'm referring specifically to two project managers' reports, one in August and one in September of this year. And with complete understanding that Councilor Arrigo's point is well taken, Councilor Powers' points are well taken. We do yet have some guidance on these issues. Again, with the understanding that these are Revere McKinley School Building Project feasibility option design estimates. And I know estimate is a word that's up there and all great, it's an estimate. What that could mean, you go in and take your car into an auto guy, fix your car, and he says it's an estimate, you start thinking, oh, that's got to be, I'm going to be hit with a big surprise at the end. But at the same time, we can't do anything but estimate right now. And to address Councilor Patch's concerns, and I am sentimental about Hill Park as well, having grown up in the same virtual neighborhood as Councilor Patch. But we did, meaning the school building committee and those involved in this project selection, have alternatives that we discussed. And if you refer back again, and I'll refer you to the August 2012 report, there were 5 separate options. And I won't belabor the issues today with them, but of all the estimates, this site, the Hill Park site, including the acquisition of St. Mary's Fields, the estimates for the city's costs in this were considerably less than the other 4 alternatives, which were deemed to be unacceptable for a variety of other reasons, not just the cost. So, with all due respect to Councilor Patch's sentimentality on this thing, and I certainly commiserate with that, that was the least expensive. That is the least expensive. This is the least expensive as of right now. Now, we are throwing in the potential, and I would once again say it's potential for acquisition of property. But as you heard the mayor say, this is not necessary. In fact, I would suggest, in deference to Councilor Powers' suggestion, that there are alternatives to added parking having to do with the old McKinley site that really ought to be discussed. Nonetheless, for a variety of reasons, option A, which was renovation of the existing building, option B, a renovation as well, option C, which was building on the same McKinley site, deemed to be completely inappropriate because of the millions of dollars it would take to educate children elsewhere while this building was being made, and lastly, the option of putting it on the Della Russo site, which is completely unacceptable because we need a football field, okay? Bear in mind, these options were considered. It's not like we're throwing this thing out here and saying, this is it, take it or leave it. This was deemed to be the least expensive option and the option that would give us the best school for our money. Now, again, I seriously doubt that the city's cost in the long run is going to be within this estimate of about $9 million. But we knew we had to spend money anyway. We knew we were only going to reimburse 80% of this. We know we're going to have to spend some money. It's not like we're going to get this for free some other way. So with that in mind, I need you to understand that this is an ongoing process. These folks are committed, the mayor, George Anzoni, are committed to giving us the figures we need when it comes to fruition. We are in the process, though. You need to be patient. You need to understand that there are going to be costs. The city has to understand there is no free lunch in this cafeteria, the old cafeteria, or any cafeteria. We're going to have to pay something for it. The school building committee is committed to making as little as possible, but you need to understand, if you expect to get bang for your buck, and 80% of those bucks are coming from the state, then you need to start thinking about what can you do to make this the best Hill school that we can possibly make it to be, with all due respect to the late President McKinley. So with that, I would ask that you all go back and take a look at these things, and they're not easy reading. It's, you know, don't do it when you're going to bed, because you'll fall asleep immediately, okay? But go back and look at these project manager reports and take a good hard look at it, and feel free to come to the school building committee with suggestions. We've got open ears on these things. But this project is moving forward. It's moving forward at maybe too slow a pace for the 10-year project, but it is moving forward now, and we need to all cooperate by getting in line and getting these answers to these questions. They are legitimate questions. But bear in mind, you are going to get these answers, and bear in mind that, you know, they may not be easy to swallow, but we're going to have to swallow a certain amount of them one way or the other. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whedon. Councilor Sambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we all have to step back just for a second here. We're here tonight for an update on the project. The update is they're showing us an outline of what's coming. The design is not finished. You don't get numbers, actual numbers, until you have a completed design. There's there's so much up in the air. They haven't decided how the soil samples, what kind of piles are going to go there. There is no way you can have the accurate numbers. Now, everybody knows that I'm probably the biggest penny pincher up here. I like to think it's fiscal responsibility, but I watch closely how we spend our money. But just to step back a little bit to the history of what happened, because I was very involved in the early parts of these projects. I spent countless hours at the West Revere complex. I was at almost every single construction meeting. And so I know how this process works pretty well. But things changed in the middle of the game. We all remember the fiscal crisis the state got into. The school building administration became a penny pincher. We didn't have the same funding structure for Paul Revere that we had for West Revere. And we paid for much more of that project than we wanted to, or expected to, I should say, from when we first went forward in 1999. And that's why that project got downsized, and it was a shame that it happened, but that's the reality. The school building administration has been completely restructured, and we're in a much better position with the school, although it's 10 years later, and the cost of construction is a lot more money today. But we are in a better reimbursement position. I would just say that we got to wait until the schematic design is ready to be presented for approval. That's when you'll have real numbers that you can look at. And the other numbers are reasonably easy to figure out, what it's going to cost to relocate the field, what it's going to cost to remodel the stadium. These are costs that can be pretty easily put together. But I would simply say that I think everybody asked a lot of good questions, but we might be a little premature on expecting the accurate answers, because it's all, at this stage of the game, it's really a guesstimate. So that's really all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sambudo. Councilor Patch wanted to ask a question, not a question, basically. Did anybody check to see if the land's contaminated? I'm sure you would, but...
If I could, I just,
Council Patch.
I just remember back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of you younger parents might not remember that there was no grass at Hill Park. It was all dirt, and they poured some kind of oil to make sure the grass wouldn't grow, and it smelled, and it was, when you played there, it was terrible. I just want to know if anybody did anything with Chapter 21E?
We have a geoenvironmental engineer, a geotechnical engineer on our team. They've done preliminary assessments of the site. We're going to be doing some more actually this week. Thursday, we're scheduled to be back on the site. What we've witnessed that are in the reports, in the geoenvironmental reports, there are some, there's sort of type of construction debris that was used as the fill, which is pretty common in urban areas. It has been tested. None of the threshold limits have been triggered. Mostly, I believe it was cinder and ash that they discovered. Some masonry products. It used to be a quarry for a brick manufacturing facility. It was a pond at one point in time, Foster's Pond, as some of you may know, maybe not recall, but that's what it was. And so it's common what we found there. It's not concerning. Since the building is going to be on a pile foundation, we believe that we're just going to be able to cap the material and leave it in place. As I mentioned, it doesn't cross any of the threshold limits, which are very strict, that are mandated by the Department of Environmental Protection. So we don't feel, it's not necessary, it's not required to remove it, and it's not necessary or prudent to remove it. It doesn't cause any sort of a health concern based on it not triggering any of the thresholds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'd just like to add my 2 cents into this, that the council's asked some very valid questions, and a lot of it pertains to the finances, which we have to vote on the bond issue. It's our responsibility to take all that information and give the taxpayers the best we can give them. But, you know, sometimes, and I've said this before, sometimes you may not afford not to build this. I mean, you're getting 80% funded. Councilor Riegel made a good point. Depending on who wins tomorrow morning, all that could change. But right now, and I think the Wheeling School is 90% funded. You know, so who knows what this is down the road. But that's why I asked. I mean, and the mayor said it, Councilor Reardon said it, and he's been on the committee. If you come in a little high and it's $2 or $3 million, and those houses can't be taken, it's not going to stop the project, and maybe you can do it the year after, because it's not going to do anything. But, and the mayor basically said something that he actually got commented on, but I take it the other way. Take this whole picture. The stadium. I ran track. I was a captain, believe it or not, in 1972 of the track team. I see one of my running mates over there, Bob Solovich. But, you know, we ran on a track that you couldn't have home meets there. It's a shame. I mean, you'd work, and we had good teams back then. We won states and everything else. We had some great teams. And, you know, just to know that's going to be fixed. There's the whole picture here of not just a school, it's what goes along with it. Councilor Haas brought up flooding issues. Those issues are probably going to be corrected finally. I mean, all this put together, so the money is one thing, but you got to take in together what you're getting out of it. Besides just the school. The schools are great. Anybody that hasn't seen our new schools, you got to go see them. I mean, we started this thing 10, 12 years, 13 years ago. I was on the council then. But I think if you go see these new schools, my school's the oldest one now. I mean, that's outdated, but I'm saying, I mean, just go through the Paul Revere School, the Wheeling School, I mean, it's incredible. You know, and we have great schools. To stop now for what we promised would be a shame. But I mean, we do have, unfortunately, a financial obligation to the taxpayers to weigh every dollar we spend, and we're just looking to spend it the right way, just like you are, just like the superintendent is, just like the mayor is. So we ask tough questions and hope to get the answers, and I think we'll throw them around again when we get the answers. But that 80-20 to me is, the 80-20 is going to be what it is. Councilor Reardon brought a point up. We get a lot of information from the building committee. I looked at A to B to C, the different designs. You take and you weigh things out. When Hill Park came about, I was first taken back a little bit. But then you got to weigh it. What is it to the taxpayers? What are you gaining? We're gaining a building across the street that's going to stand up there probably for another 100 years. And it's going to have these kids going to school for 2 more years. Who knows where they'd go? Cramped in with somewhere else. These kids would suffer for 2 years. So who's suffering? Every kid that's in classroom today in that school would suffer for 2 more years. That is taken away. They're going to be still in that school. Okay? Not cramped in maybe to Beachmont, maybe to Paul Revere. And every one school I just heard is overcrowded. So how do you take these kids out of that school? I think you even got some portable classrooms over there, which is a shame. But can you imagine with no school? I mean, you're going to take everything. What is that building going to be worth over there that would have to tear down to put a school? You couldn't build that school for millions of dollars. So, I mean, and there's grant money out there for parks and other stuff. Federal money, state money. So, I mean, we got to take everything together. And at the end of the day, you know, I see this thing, and I looked at this thing, and I consider myself a numbers guy, that you almost cannot afford not to build it there. How you build it's another thing, and that's your job to build it. And I commend the mayor. I'm sure the mayor, I mean, this, you know, school, I heard, geez, Paul Revere should have been built after the other school. I mean, it's done. Let's forget about it. Let's move on. You know, we got this school to build, and who knows? It's probably another school after that. I hope we're all here for that. But I think, you know, the dollars and cents have to make sense at the end of the day. And I think that's a lot of good questions are asked here. Anybody from the school committee want to speak? Superintendent Dakin, anybody? Before, we do have a council meeting, unfortunately, at 6 o'clock. No, go ahead, Mayor.
No, I just wanted to once again thank the city council. I just, you know, and, you know, you all have to realize, I mean, I was sitting on the other side 10 months ago, so I understand what you're all going through. But, you know, having sat on this side now for 10 months, I also understand what the school department has to go through, and you know, it's really not an easy job. That's why this joint meeting, I think, is very, very helpful, because I want us all on the same page. You know, we all have the same goals, and you know, we just have to find a way to make it work. So I appreciate you having us here, Mr. President, and I appreciate the council's attention to this presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank the school committee. I want to thank the people. I mean, it's probably the biggest crowd we had in a while. We're not even protected by the chain thing over there. So it was actually a good night. Anybody want to come to the podium and speak? Yes. Hi.
I'm a little nervous. My name is Janet Semino, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the history that I have with the McKinley School. Back in 1989, 23 years ago, I was pregnant with my daughter Marissa, and I answered a knock on my door. It was a neighborhood mom collecting petitions for signatures for a petition to have an addition cafeteria built at the McKinley School. Sorry, nervous. That began my relationship with the McKinley School community. As a past parent, PTA officer, and now lucky enough to be part of the school staff, I have fought for what the students deserve for many years. I've spoken before 4 mayors and worked with 4 principals to balance the gross inequities the school faces. As a parent, I was happy to have my children educated in a caring, nurturing environment with dedicated teachers. I quickly learned that McKinley School was much more than a building, but I was appalled at the conditions. I do think it should be mentioned and speaks volumes that elected officials and others employed by the Revere Public Schools that lived in the McKinley School District chose to have their children educated at other schools. That was not cool. But I knew my children were safe and happy, but they did not benefit from a library, music room, art room, auditorium, gymnasium, cafeteria, a sufficient nurse's office. Our nurse's office has 1 bed, enough bathrooms, windows that opened or closed, and an outdated electrical system that could not keep up with the demands of the current technology. In the wintertime, I quickly learned to dress my children in layers to accommodate the classrooms that cannot control their temperature. One side of the building would be freezing and the other side would be sweltering. And as a school community, we could not come together for events such as a winter wonderland, a haunted house, a school-wide dance, and for at least the past 6 or 7 years, we could not even have a book fair for our students due to lack of space. In the year 1999, so 10 years ago, we were thrilled to learn, more than 10, sorry, we were thrilled to learn that after years of waiting, we were going to get a new school as part of the city's 5-year school building plan. We were disappointed to be scheduled the last school to be built, but understood the thought process behind it and believed that every child in the city deserved to benefit from the new schools. The McKinley School, our school, was cut due to the rising cost of the building plan and had to be taken off the list of buildings to ensure the building of the 4th school. We were even more frustrated to gain this knowledge by reading about it in the Boston Globe. That is how a majority of us found out. At this point, we were assured we would be built, even though we were back to square one. I should mention that at this point, my children were in college and in high school, but I continue to support the school, and I'm now lucky enough to be a part of the staff. I had always looked at the school through the eyes of a parent. It was eye-opening to look at it through the eyes of somebody that worked there on a daily basis. I was always impressed with McKinley teachers, but I am now in awe of them. They deal with the challenges and obstacles of the building with grace, humor, teamwork, and seamlessly never let their students see the inequities. To name a few, as you know, overcrowded classrooms, a teacher's room that cannot even accommodate all of the teachers at lunchtime. There's always someone standing. We have one staff bathroom for 63 employees. The classrooms are either too hot or too cold. The windows cannot be opened or shut. Blinds cannot be drawn in the classrooms. There's no appropriate meeting place to meet with parents, coworkers, or counselors. And there's no special place for education accommodations, special education accommodations, just to name a few. Through the years, there have been Band-Aids put in place to help us deal with the building's shortcomings. Though we are very grateful for them, they often present new problems. For instance, the modular classrooms will provide with 4 additional classrooms, but we have lost a playground. The McKinley was built in 1906, and the addition was added in 1930. We are built to accommodate roughly 400 students and staff. We currently have about 463 students and 63 staff members. That's 526 bodies in a building built approximately for 400. What I have stated tonight, and what many others have echoed through the years, is we are in dire straits. My path to seeing a new school built has begun 23 years ago, and I began that journey with my daughter, and she is now in her final year of graduate school. It's been a long, frustrating journey filled with glimmers of hope and many disappointments. However, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and everyone in this room can see it. This is your chance, your opportunity to give present and future students an equitable chance at a quality education, one that is provided for every other student in the city. The time of neglect is over. The parents deserve better, the teachers deserve better, and the students better. We are the McKinley community, and we deserve and demand the same opportunities as all the other schools in the city. We are begging you to make things right and to approve this plan. Thank you.
Just great job. I think, just to let everybody know, we're going to have to take a vote on this thing, this council, when it comes to the bond issue and also the transfer to park. I'm sure I'm going to see you all up here again, and that's the time to probably voice your opinion or talk to your councilors. But thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And we'll go a 2-minute recess, and we'll start the 6 o'clock meeting right into this. Thank you.